Welcome, everybody, to ESPN Esports on Twitch. This is the ESPN Esports Valorant Show. Yes, we know that you're very sad right now. If you were part of the closed beta, F in the chat for the fact that we can't play right now. But guess what? You'll be able to do so on June 2nd. Arda, Emily, Tyler, and Jacob here to fill the void, because we know that there is a void in your heart right now. We know that you're looking for things to do. So we are here to help you. And you know what else we're going to do, folks? We figured, since we have all this free time on our hands, and since the release of the game will be on June 2nd, maybe we give you 12 hours of live content on June 1st. Does that sound good? What do you think?
No big deal.
Is that a good idea? What do you think?
I don't know, man. That's a little crazy.
What are y'all doing on June 1st for 12 hours from noon to midnight Eastern? Any plans?
Getting on stream.
That's exactly, yes.
I think I have a stream date with Arda Ocal. Just maybe.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we all have a date with all of you watching in chat. That's what we're going to do. On June 1st, this is not an announcement of an announcement. This is an announcement. We are officially telling you that we will have 12 hours of stream content right here from noon Eastern to midnight on June 1st. We're going to have interviews with the developers, with pro players, with owners, with casters. We're going to have a bunch of content. We have 12 hours to fill, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I think Emily's even going to have a meta conversation, which I'm super pumped for.
Yeah, we're going to have a 45-minute conversation where everyone's going to tune out of the stream except for like 3 people, and we're going to break down a ton of statistics. It's going to be awesome.
I look forward to me, Arda, and the one other person. We'll have a good chat.
Are you kidding me? I'm going to be in the chat so hard for that. I'm going to be like asking a bunch of
Maybe I can get Joe, he's strong on Twitter. He's been doing a bunch of EU Valorant stuff. Maybe I can get him to pop in the chat too. I know he's interested in stats.
So you're going to be seeing all 4 of us throughout that day. We're going to be interviewing a bunch of people. I believe Tyler's going to be talking with the developers and some pro players. I'll be talking with casters. Jacob's going to be weighing in and talking with people as well. It's going to be a full day. We're going to have 12 hours of excellent content for you right here, twitch.tv/ESPN Esports, and we're going to be live. So mark it on your calendar. The day before Valorant goes live to the general public, we will be here. This is going to be the most comprehensive way to get you set, to get you amped and hyped to play Valorant worldwide. So there you go. That's our announcement. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show. We do have some stuff to talk about on this program because we are live every single Thursday. So closed beta ends. We all had a chance to play it a bunch. Beta shut down this morning. Final thoughts on the experience. We look back on it from start to finish, even our own experiences. And comparing it to other betas that you may or may not have been a part of. Tyler, starting with you, how would you assess the closed beta experience for Valorant?
It was so fun, and we wrote about this in our roundtable article where we kind of all went over our experiences in the beta. But I think on a personal level, I would give the game like a 9.5 or a 9. Anytime you have a game where it feels necessary, like I felt needed to like go play at least 1 or 2 games a day, even if it was like after a long work day, did a bunch of interviews, wrote an article or 2, I still felt the need to play a game or 2 just so I can keep my senses. I wanted to keep continuing my grind and getting better at the game as it went along. Obviously there's some holes in the game. We'll get into that later. If it should be, released so soon, if they should, wait a few more months to, get it perfectly right and have all the regions launch with the game. But I had a blast with the game. Solo queue, not as much as playing with friends and you guys, but in terms of beta and just of like 3 million active players around the world, stream numbers were great. They kind of simmered down by the end, but still, top 5, top 10 on Twitch every single day. I think if you're the Riot development team who made this game, you're ecstatic. It's a great foundation to build off of, but you cannot rest on your laurels. If this is the game that Valorant is a year from now, this game is not going to be a tier 1 esport. It's not going to be, a mega hit. It will be a tier 3. It'll be a, hell of a niche community, but it's not going to be one of the big games in the world. but it's a great foundation to build off of it. And if they can build from this, it can be that tier 1 esport. It can be that mega hit that I think a lot of people think it has the potential to be.
Yeah, I think there's two different things. My personal experience, which was really fun when I played with people I knew. So I pretty much, after my first few solo experiences, only played with people I knew. But then I think to the beta, from a beta standpoint, this is, and again, like I'm measuring success in hype and like the fact that we have a show for something that doesn't even have an esports scene technically, right? Like it's, I think the amount of hype generated by the way Riot handled this from the alpha boot camp, where they sent out invitations, to the beta launch itself, to iterating on that through stream drops. It was just really smart and calculated about how they wanted to use people to advertise this game for them in a really genuine way, right? Like they made sure that people could test the product pretty much as they wanted, and then made it so that you have to watch streams in order to like get into the closed beta to feel like part of this kind of burgeoning community for a new game. Like I think everything, like I don't know if this is probably, this might be sounding like too cynical to people. It's not. It's like I think it's smart. I think everything they did around this release is just incredibly smart. And now, to Tyler's point, it depends on how they're going to further that within the first year, especially since they have said that they're not going to have as heavy hand in building the esports scene as you might have seen, you know, Blizzard be with Overwatch or something like that. So, but I think in general, as a beta for a game, this is the most successful one that I can remember. And maybe I will say I do have an inherent bias because I follow a lot of people who are already in esports, but it's definitely the one that I've seen talked about and discussed and like shared the most.
Yeah, so I think that by the end of the beta period, like I felt like I had done a little bit of it all. Like I'm looking forward to more game content. I think the game content that was in the beta was fantastic, right? Like it didn't feel half baked. It felt like it was a full pie, not like some filling, right? So I think in that case, like it was, what they put in there was, as Tyler said, a very good foundation for what will ultimately be sort of iterated on and what new versions will come out over the next couple of years as they continue to service it, as they have with League of Legends. So props to them on that. But I will say, like, I played a lot of it, and by the end of it, I certainly kind of got a little bored because there was just a lack of content, right? Like, only so many agents and only so many maps you can play, only so many situations you can get into and, like, try something new. And, like, oh, you know, I'm sure you can critique me for playing thousands of hours of League of Legends, which is more or less the same thing. But nonetheless, like, their league has so much depth that has come over time, though, right? Like I was around in early League of Legends days, and like League of Legends lacked a lot of depth early on too. It was a new genre. That was the different. Like it was no MOBAs were around, but not to the same extent they were when League and Dota 2 came out. So that said, good on them for not putting out something that was totally half-assed about this into beta. I felt like they did a good job on that. Putting my business hat on, to Emily's point, I think that with partnering with influencers in the way that they did was actually really impressive. And this is something I talked about early on in the beta. Like everyone that participated in the alpha with Tyler and some of our other colleagues, like they weren't paid to be there. Like Ninja wasn't paid to show up, right? Like, and overall, right? Like that's a huge deal because we've seen where like Apex Legends, a game I still like homer for as a player because I love it, although it's not worth my time covering as an esport right now. Nonetheless, like Apex like dumped millions of dollars. We see what Crucible is doing right now, where the game is like, and we were kind of laughing at it and getting set up for this. Like they were dumping Amazon's dumping all this money onto people's plates to play it and engage with it, but like no one cares because the game's not good.
Can I ask really quickly? Have any of you played much of Crucible?
I played a little bit of it.
Yeah, I played a little bit of it.
There's no chat system, which is like it's
Bad.
That's bad. I understand the reasoning, right? Like, toxicity, and we've talked about this on this podcast, especially, is that toxicity in Valorant in a lot of these games is terrible. So, if you cut out the middleman and you have to do a ping system that is supposedly supposed to help, right? But not even having a chat system, you can't even text your teammates. And Crucible's not even beta, and that's the worst part about it. If this was a beta for Crucible, some sins could be forgiven, but this is a full release. So
you can make fun of Riot all you want for taking like almost 10 years to put out another title, right? Like if we count TFT as their first title after League of Legends, right? Because it is a perceivably like very different game. Like you can mock them all you want, but at least they're not EA and Amazon Game Studios.
Well, listen, this is the most amount of time that any major platform has given to Crucible.
But like the point being, right? Like you look at Anthem, you look at Crucible, like these games like came out and they were like full releases and they were crud, right? Like they're like half baked, like they don't feel very fleshed out. Like
that's a conversation for another day,
sure.
Right? Like just the idea of
My point being is that like Riot got organically got influencers into the door without having to pay them millions of dollars to do it. A lot of them went on to actually really like the game, right? Like there are some that like tuned out and zoned out, but there are a lot that have stuck around. And overall, like like the game itself was ready for that. Like it wasn't an unfair expectation that these influencers are going to come on. Now the real question is like, can Riot sustain this through the life cycle of this game?
One last point on this is that, to Jacob's point, is that these people still really like the game. And I think the thing is, Valorant isn't a good streaming game. And the current iteration of Valorant it's not the best streaming game. Like, even Counter-Strike...
Neither is Counter-Strike, yeah.
Yeah, Counter-Strike pops off when tournaments happen, right? Like, millions will tune in for tournaments, but like a general stream, unless you're one of the top players with a very big fan base, you're not going to pop off on a stream because it's a very slow, methodical game a lot of times. So, for Ninja to keep playing this game, even though... like it's not the best viewing experience, and
that says something.
You can't. If Riot had dumped money into forcing people to stream this game, it would have had. I don't think it would have had the natural growth that it did, and the kind of the love that these players had for this game. Right? If you force them to stream a game where their viewership's going to tune out, it kind of weeds out the people that are looking just for the money. Right? Like Ninja doesn't need the money, so he's going to stream whatever game he likes. He really enjoys the grind to get better and to become a Valorant ranked player, which we could talk about coming up about how that silly title is finally being changed. But
you can't be Valorant in Valorant anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing of Crucible, and the last point on this is that sure they had the biggest names playing the game, but it just didn't work. And you can't force people to enjoy your game no matter how much you pay them. You can't force them to fake reacting and to ignore chat. If you're a big streamer and you're streaming to 20,000 people, they can see if a game is bad, and they can see if you're faking being happy and thinking the game's fun. So, kudos on Valorant, a very good beta, very good foundation, but if it wants to be a kingpin in esports and as just a general gaming title, it needs to improve on a lot of factors and grow from this foundation.
Well, listen, one thing that we saw from the closed beta was a lot of pop-off moments that made people very happy. Emily, let's start with yours. What we did actually was we all picked one moment that we would consider our favorite or maybe even the best moment of the beta. Emily, what did you pick?
Well, so I cheated, and I really just wanted to talk about Fish 123 again. So my moment is the artist. I was going to do a really bad pun. I was going to say the artist formerly known as Ice Paper Hands, which is terrible because he changed his name. Anyway, all right. No one likes my dad jokes. I just really wanted to talk about this team one last time. The moment in and of itself, it's super impressive. It's what you think of when you think of him, which is kind of the op of the team. And I just think I love seeing teams like this. Like these are my personal favorite moments from beta, where it's not a streamer doing some sort of insane like 1v like 4 or 5 outplay, It's something like this where you see a team of like talented semi-pros who maybe didn't get to go pro in their own game, or they didn't have as much success in their game, and they come into this game and they have a really interesting understanding of how to play it, especially on split. And I really love watching these guys. Like these kind of stories are my personal favorite things to come out of something like a closed beta when you do have tournaments. It's something I pay a lot more attention to than streamers. So again, like I kind of cheated, but that was my moment.
Tyler, what's yours?
Mine is the exact opposite of Emily's, where hers is very clinical and straightforward. Where I took
you know Twitter's gonna say you hate Fish 123.
No.
But
look at these clips. Look at these clips. Look at this. This is what I want Valorant to be in the long game. I know a lot of people want this to be the CS:GO game and to be very like Counter-Strike in every possible way, but watching a player play Raze like this, where she's so mobile, and even using her ultimate, which people are like, it's too overpowered, where they're using the ultimate to actually just use it for terrain gain and to use it for mobility, is beautiful to see. I like that this person, Flight, who made a beautiful montage, if you've not checked it out, like a 3-minute montage of all his best Raze plays, is that he did what the developers want, right? The entire point of this game is to defy the limits, to think outside the box. We're going to give you the tools to paint a picture and paint whatever you want. Some of them have been, fixed out of the game. Like the Omen bugs, some Sage walls have been, nerfed a bit. But I think these kind of Raze plays are necessary for the longevity of the game, because these are the type of plays where people are going to be wanting to watch the game. The Counter-Strike play, if you want to watch Counter-Strike, pure Counter-Strike, go watch Counter-Strike, because it's an amazing esport. Valorant's never going to beat Counter-Strike when it comes to a viewing experience of pure gunplay. But when you add in pop-off moments like that, where you see a Raze, boosting 3 times to, go from spawn to heaven to just, it's insane. Looking at those kind of plays is what makes me excited about the future of pro play in Valorant. And I hope it's not nerfed or it's not, taken away because it's too powerful.
I hadn't seen that knife at the spike play.
Oh,
my word.
It's so
dirty. If I had known that existed, I actually would have picked that so that we could watch it again. That was beautiful. Just the way to get to the spike around the, oh my gosh.
But those are the plays that make people fall in love for an esport, right? Why is League of Legends the biggest esport in the world? It's because of plays like Faker in Season 3, back when League of Legends you could snowball with one player, right? Now League of Legends is much more team-oriented, where one player just can't stomp everyone and snowball the game itself. But one of the reasons why League became so popular is because players like Faker and Dade and Erzberger had these amazing individual plays that made people want to play the game. So if you're watching a tournament,
watch this.
Yeah.
Oh my word!
If you're watching a tournament and you see that knife play, you're gonna go to your computer right after, buy Raze, and play her until you can do that or get close to that. And I think that's what Valorant needs, is some spice and electricity to its gameplay, because if you're going to try to out Counter-Strike, you're not going to do that. You're going to lose. You have to be your own game.
Jacob is someone who covers Counter-Strike on the Eco. And
player,
column.
Actually.
And also, yes, indeed. So what was your big moment from the closed beta on Valorant?
So this is one of the Counter-Strike 5 stacks that Skadoodle was queuing up with in higher level scrims, and ended up like Omen. If we remember when the game first came out, a lot of people didn't give Omen the right time of day, and so this play is Ska making a full rotational map in a 1v4 that you were about to see. His team ends up dying. Here he is by himself, 1v4, bouncing around the map, using the teleports, getting positional advantage, headshot, and then pushes into C and is about to win the game. So I think the one thing is this kind of shows like, now in hindsight, this is a little bit older of a clip, but it came top of mind when we were talking about this. Now you like know that you can hear the Omen teleport, right? So you should be able to like know what that sound indicator is and know that it's around you. But like using the smoke, this is Stewie2K actually that he kills right here, who pushes through the smoke and gets just absolutely wrecked. But nonetheless, like making good use of this with a character that a lot of people considered underpowered when it first came out. I would presume or I would agree that he was. But just look at that, like just making best use of abilities. To Tyler's point, this is like, showing that this game has a little bit more depth to it from the ability because of the ability perspective than just shooting in CS. And it's part of what makes it really fun and unique.
Well, Skadoodle is, as we know, one of the only high-level Omen players out there that we're aware of. Not many pros are playing Omen.
Jarek's played him a bit. The Dota champion played him during the European Brawl on Team Finland to varying degrees of success. There's some
but
good
it's very rare still as compared to everything else.
Yeah, I mean, Omen is the highlight champion or the highlight agent, right? Where when you do a great mind bending trick,
to be honest, but nonetheless, yeah.
I think Jet is more of a mechanical highlight reel, where I think Omen's much more of the 5 head. Like, I'm gonna outthink you. I might not be able to out aim you, but if I can get you in a position where I can just shoot you in the back of the head, then I can win the game. I talked to a lot of people where that is Omen, where if you're not the best mechanically, sometimes you want to outthink the opponent. And I think when you're playing against high-level pros who have a deep understanding of the game, it's harder to trick them than, some Iron players. Yeah. So I do think Omen will be viable and has been viable in some high-level tournaments, but I don't think he's going to be a staple like, even a Jet now. Even Jet and Raze and Phoenix have all found success in, high-level tournaments.
The thing is that a lot of Venerated is in their chat saying Brim just outclasses Omen in every way. Exactly, particularly with the smokes, right? I mean,
That's
Brim's smokes are way more efficient, and Brim's ult is excellent, right?
It's just like you can make the argument for Breach over Phoenix too, right? Because they both have the flashbangs, right? Like Breach is probably the best character in the game as of the patch before it closed down, right? Like, but
totally.
Yeah, there are a couple characters, and same with. Also, the Brim thing applies to Viper, right? Because part of her strong suit is those smokes, although you can't necessarily put them on command like you can with Omen and Brimstone. But yeah, I would agree with Venerated. I don't think that's a hard take, but I do think Omen has its benefits from a working perspective.
So here's my clip. This one is from the T1 Invitational. I lost my mind when I saw this.
I remember this one.
This is Wardell, and he's on A site here on Split.
Elish.
And so the wall is there. He stops, and look how much time is left. I want to play this again, but look how much time is left on the diffuse. 0.04 seconds. So that means that in the 1v1, he stops midway. So he gets at least the midway marker, right? Yeah. But he has enough presence of mind to see the breach, misses the ability there, goes the right way around the wall, gets the elimination, goes back, and still has enough time to defuse. To me,
he could have stuck it. We talked about this. He could have stuck it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. So, I would guess that even 90% of pros might continue to defuse in that situation and still get the round. But somehow, this is, for me, exactly the creation of drama in a moment in Valorant. Yeah. These are the kind of moments, going back to what you were saying, Tyler, about how Valorant creates those moments that just give you that dopamine drip, that adrenaline rush. This is that personified for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a Counter-Strike defusal, but the walls utility gives it an extra edge, right?
Sorry to interrupt. So Juke's Sidewalker says, wasn't this a 1v3? It was actually a 1v3 on B site, and Wardell got 2 of the eliminations and then knew. I asked him about it, and he said, as soon as I got one of the eliminations, I knew that this was going to rotate back to A. So it was like a race to A, and that's why it happened. One of them was on Heaven, and he was on site planting Spike. Just incredible.
Yeah, Valorant's incredible beta moments. This game at its best, its best moments is, I think, as hype as any other esport. It just needs a much, 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 much better spectator mode.
I'm just gonna point something out. I think we could talk about this for a while, but actually something that I just thought of during Arda talking about that play is an X-ray. How much more hype would that play have been if you had the Counter-Strike X-ray, right? Where you can. Where the spectator can see through the wall, not the actual player, obviously. If you're unfamiliar with CS and this is your first hack shooter, in Counter-Strike, the spectator, the observer can see an outline through the wall. So presumably you would know, you could see both parties, right? You could see from Elige's POV where Wardell is, you can see where Elige is from Wardell's POV. that would have made that even more hype, even though it already was.
So-
But nonetheless, yeah, that's super necessary in my
So
opinion.
speaking of Wardell, Emily, we'll get to where he
Mhm.
signed in just a second. I do want to mention that on June 2nd, when the game is launched, the first major Valorant event that is scheduled is a Twitch Rivals tournament. So there's going to be a $200,000 prize pool. It's going to be up for grabs on June 2nd, the day Valorant is released to the public. So we're already hearing about upcoming events. I'm sure we're going to talk about, we've already done a big deep dive on what we think the immediate future of esports is going to be for Valorant. So let's talk about some of the news and notes that we have heard and seen in the past week. So Wardell, we just talked about him, signs with TSM. Also, all of his Mouse Spaz friends signed with
What a
TSM.
surprise!
So we have we have a 5-stack signing in Valorant. And we've discussed a lot, Emily, about how what's the best approach for an organization? Is it sign the superstars? Is it find the unknown teams? But this is an interesting one because these are players that have become known in the Valorant community at least, but they are all signed at the same time. So it's almost kind of like the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I think when Tyler first started talking about them like weeks and weeks ago, right? Like he already said that Wardell was really upfront about we want to stay together. Like we want to be as 5. We think this is the best way for us to get picked up. We don't want to be separated. And negotiating for this team was truly a team thing. You had to pick up the entire team if you wanted like Wardell as like the, I guess, the biggest name on this team. So
Maybe.
yeah, like I mean, it's debatable, but I feel like whenever people talked about it, they would say Wardell stack, right? And
Sure.
that could also be a fault of the fact that sometimes in tournaments they would just say like team and then player off of that team. But I think that this is I prefer, like I said this with Gen G, I've said it with Fish123, how I want them to get picked up as a 5-stack. I think this is the best way to go initially going into the esports scene, rather than having to create a team from scratch. That team, like the teams that are bringing in a lot of players, a lot of really good players, either from beta or big names that swapped over, like we talked about Sentinels before. I think those teams could be actually better in the long run. Like maybe if they stick together, better at mid or by the midpoint or the end of next year, like when after we're like a year in. But I think the teams that are going to do really well and have the chance to improve, with provided that they're given good infrastructure and a lot of chances to play, are going to be these 5 stacks of teams that have already practiced together through the beta. So that's why I do like this signing.
Tyler had a chance to speak with Wardell. Jacob, we'll get your thoughts after we see Tyler talking with Wardell. The full interviews available at youtube.com/ESPN Esports. Here's a clip now.
Another thing about this TSM roster is that all 5 of you individually teams are looking at. I mean, I heard a lot of teams were looking at you. A lot of teams were looking at Sub Rosa. Like you two are like hot commodities by yourselves. But I heard from many teams that you 5 were not going to play without each other. What was it about these 5 players, this group? Why were you guys so steadfast on playing together under the same org?
Well, we wanted to be a part of. Well, I wanted to play with this core because we all have CS:GO experience, and some are like veterans and some are new people. But like, we have like the perfect combination of like support and aggressive players. So then like we perfectly fit, and like attitudes, personalities align. Nobody's like hard-headed, stubborn, or whatever like that. Everyone's willing to work, and a lot of people in the CS:GO scene, they're like really hard-headed, they're stubborn, set in their ways, type of thing. But everyone on this team willing to grow, willing to learn. So that's why I wanted to stay with this core.
And stealing a little bit about the Counter-Strike scene, you were one of the perceived next men up, right? You were seen from Reddit, the community. When it came to North American tier 2 talent or burgeoning tier 1 talent, you were the guy. People are always saying if one of the T1 teams like Team Liquid or NRG or EG have to make a change, they'll pick up Wardell. You were kind of next in line to be one of those next big players, like a Stewie 2K. Why did you leave Counter-Strike? Why didn't you just wait to, get picked up by one of those tier 1 organizations? Was it you just were sick of waiting? Were you just done with the game? Why did you leave Counter-Strike?
Well, I started streaming 8 months ago, and in hopes of a pro team of wanting to pick me up. So then I set off on that journey for 8 months and streamed every day for 8 months, and then built a big following. But then no team would hit me up. So then I kind of get tired of it. But then I played with Orgless, and then we became a team. And then we couldn't find any organizations. So then again, I got tired again. And then like at one point, I just got sick and tired of just waiting and waiting for an org. So then when Valorant came out, I was like, this is our one opportunity. Opportunity to get an org and actually compete against like North America and all that and become the best.
So yeah, talking to Wardell was really interesting, and just the entire team, their kind of mindset talking to the team was that they wanted to be 5 Counter-Strike players, not just the 5 friends, right? This was their mindset is 5 Counter-Strike players overall as the scene develops is going to be much stronger than some of these teams that are built around multi-FPS stars. They knew that if they signed individually to some teams, they would be stuck with players from non-Counter-Strike backgrounds, and they did not want that. So that adds a little bit of spice to this, right? Where this TSM team is very Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is the way to go. We were a 5-stack Counter-Strike team. While other NA teams, some of these, super teams, so to speak, with, these all-stars from other, backgrounds, are on the lookout. Because TSM is very much thinking of the line that if you come from Counter-Strike, you're the best mindset. Multi-FPS teams are going to burn out as the game kind of picks up steam in the esports world. So we'll see how it happens. It could be the truth.
The Mousepass core, like, honestly, it harps back to the conversations we've had on the show over the last couple of weeks. Is like, this is exactly the type of players that have another life in Counter-Strike, right? Like, in Valorant, rather, that came from Counter-Strike. Like, Hazed and Cutler, I've been watching for like 6 years. Right, literally since like CS:GO came out and got popular in North America, and like, no offense to them, they're nice guys, but they're kind of washed when it comes to CS:GO professional play. And I don't think it's a hot take among CS people, right? Like,
I just think it's funny. I like
that,
throwing in the.
Those guys had their moments on CLG and on other teams in North American CS, and like, they just didn't make it, right? Like, versus Wardell and Subrosa, who like have much shorter careers, and Wardell in particular, but Subrosa also, right? Where like these guys were talents in CS, but like they weren't going to be on the Liquid, or like their trajectory wasn't going towards like Liquid or Gingy or C9, right? Like they were on Orgless, right? With literally like a team that couldn't find an organization to play in Flashpoint at all. So nonetheless, like, and probably weren't going to get signed anywhere, or probably would have happened along the way. So that said, like, this is the perfect meld of players that will come from CS and have the opportunity. I'm not going to say they will be successful, but we have seen this in other games. Seagull is a great example of this, in my opinion. Was really popular in TF2 and other titles, but like in small communities, and or like, comparable in the fact that like these guys aren't the biggest names in CS. But then Seagull went to Overwatch and became the face of North American Overwatch, and like has built himself a whole other life that is successful. Subrosa, Wardell, Cutler, Hayes, they had that opportunity here in Valorant to come into this game, and like, just because they were not the best in Counter-Strike doesn't mean they don't have the opportunity to be the best in Valorant, a game with a brand new community. So yeah, I'm really sort of intrigued to see where these guys end up going over the next really six months to a year, I guess.
Well, we know exactly where we're going to go on June 2nd, and that is the official launch for Valorant. That's when it will be available to the general public. One person who might disagree with that launch date, however, is Shroud. That is correct. One of the most popular streamers out there seems to think that maybe it's a little too soon for this game to be released. Here is a recent clip.
Just came here to say that Valorant launching too early is big fucking facts. Bro, it is not ready. Valorant is not ready. I don't know what the fuck they think they're doing. I think they're just being pushed by Riot. So you got to realize, like, Riot, when you say Riot, okay? Riot's the big dog, okay? Riot is not making Valorant. Valorant is being made by a certain set of individuals, right? These people. While they do work for Riot, they are not really Riot. You know what I'm saying? So I think Riot out here is pressuring these little dogs to get this title out, but they're probably thinking, fuck, we're not ready. Let's try our best. Because I know for a fact that I don't know for a fact. I'm just talking out my ass. But I'm pretty confident that they don't think it's ready. Because how could you? It's missing so much. Literally, you get 60 frames sometimes, you know? Like, I don't know. It's going to be bad. It's going to be bad.
All right, so some interesting points there from Shroud. And listen, some people might agree and think it might be a little too soon for this to have a wide release like this. Some people might agree that the game doesn't feel necessarily complete. Maybe you can nitpick at a couple things. Sure, maybe there's graphical errors like limbs are sticking out of boxes when you get eliminated, for example. But like that happens with many games, right? So, Jacob, do you agree with what Shroud is saying here, or do you think that June 2nd is a fine release date for Valorant?
So I will preface this by saying, because some people make the assumption that when you criticize someone's opinion that you think they dislike them. I've covered Shroud for a while. I've covered C9CS for a while, and I really like him as an individual. I think he's a good human being. That said, I think he's wrong, and I think he's like not really. I don't think he understands, and if he does, maybe he's not letting this on. Like software development in general. If you think what you played 2 nights ago before Valorant Dark, if you think that's the final version of the game you're going to see on June 2nd, or the release version of the game on June 2nd, you're wrong. We already know that they're going to add additional content. They've already said that. But I'd be stunned if Riot didn't make significant changes for the better that have not seen playtime other than within the walls of Riot Games in California. Right? Like that is like, yeah, like 100%. I think that there are issues. I think that what we said earlier in the show, that the game is like fairly baked, but there is like a lack of content that needs to be fixed, right, and added, right? Like I got a little bored, like I said at the end, because I'd kind of done it all by putting in a lot of hours. But nonetheless, like there's a lot we haven't seen too that we will presumably get on June 2nd, and then also over the next couple of months as the game progresses. So I think that like people who are making that critique aren't necessarily taking in how software development works more generally. And I think that we're going to get more content. But I also think like I do understand the criticism, right? Like if you're going just based off the beta, yes, it's not ready. But I think there's more to it than just what we saw in beta.
I think I'm kind of torn. I actually agree, I think, a little bit more with him than you do, Jacob, only because I've seen as recently as this year, things go out to, for example, the PBE that were broken, and Riot having received feedback that the PBE is broken, and then those things still come to the full League of Legends patches. And I think there's definitely a history to go on where even in the beta accesses that they have for their giant title, that sometimes the community response doesn't always lead to actual in-game changes. I do want to bring that up. I agree that I don't think, or I will also be very surprised if what we saw from even the end of beta is going to be what was launched. Not only because we're going to be receiving new content, but also just because this team seems to have been very communicative with the public the entire way, which is something that I think actually a lot, even maybe some of the League of Legends team at points in time could learn from. So I think like that is a point in their favor. I actually think it's going to be somewhere in between those 2 points, right? Like I do think we're going to see a lot of problems with this game still. The main thing I want to see is fixing the 4v5 situation, or the yes. 3v5 or the 3v4, because I feel like I really did not have a game over the past 2 weeks where there were 5 people versus 5 people as the majority of my games. It was not the majority of my games. The majority of my games had at least one person missing from either side.
Yeah, the ult orb feels real bad too. It's not enough.
Yeah,
it's not enough.
So there's like, I mean, there's a lot of things that they need to change. I think there's a lot of things that they're aware of. I don't know. Hopefully they are able to change them before the major release, which is another thing. Like I I feel like even if they want to change them, the release might still have issues as it releases, especially with the giant amount of people who are playing. I also think that, so I'm actually of the mindset where I don't mind that it's launching now. I do wish they had waited. To my main point for that is that I wish they could have waited, and obviously this didn't happen with League of Legends either, so it's not like I'm saying they did it with League, why aren't they doing it with Valorant, because they didn't do it with League either. I would have loved to see them wait to a point where they could release it in primarily the US, Europe, South Korea, China, and Brazil all on the same day, because I think those are going to be like major populated regions where people are going to want to play this. That would have been really cool to see. I understand why they're pushing it through though, because at the same time, you have the argument that you want to ride the momentum that you had from this beta. And I think they still have a remarkable amount of momentum because of what we, all three of us, said previously. The way they use influencers, the way they've gone from alpha through the entire beta process has been amazing. Like, they've really leveraged everything they possibly could to create a good product and a genuine experience where people can look at their favorite streamers or their favorite semi-pros or ex-pros or whatever and be like, oh, they actually love this game. Like, it's not just the drops. It's not just, and like those things have something to do with the popularity, but it's also the fact that the game is fun to play. So there's a lot of things here. I still would have preferred that they waited a bit. I totally understand why they didn't, and I don't vehemently disagree with it either. My opinion could change if everything goes absolutely insane on launch day, which is always a possibility.
Which it can.
I hope it doesn't, though, because I really want this to be successful.
So I do just want to say something because I see our chat talking about it.
Real quick, then let's go to Tyler.
Yeah. So, the other part of that clip was that he was insinuating that Riot, the Valorant dev team at Riot, is separate from Riot corporate, right? But while I think that's somewhat true, in the fact that the people who sit in the C-suite at Riot Games are somewhat disconnected from the actual developer themselves, I don't think they're so disconnected that Nico Laurent, the CEO of Riot, is breathing down the back of the lead developer for Valorant's neck, right? I don't think that's what's going on here. Mm-mm. And I also think that because of the excitement that Valorant's gotten over the past few months, the goals are aligned, right? I think even if the game is too early, I think the Valorant team is just as much excited to ship it as the corporate executive who wants to make a lot of money, right? I think both parties want to ship it soon for different reasons. So I don't understand, I don't think they're being forced to do anything. I think that both the development team and the executive team are both excited to put something out because it's got a lot of hype around it. And whether that is to capitalize on, or whether that's to be rewarded in terms of people complimenting you for your good work if you're the dev team, or if that's to rake in money into your pockets if you're the executive team in the finance department, right? Those goals still seem aligned, even if they are for different reasons.
Tyler, take the last point on this.
Yeah, I think all you really have to say about the corp pushing this to be out June 2nd is that that's ridiculous, because if they were going to listen to the corp, they would listen to Tencent, and they would wait till China could actually play the game on launch. I mean, China already has more pro teams than Europe does, and they don't even have access to the game officially. Mm-hmm. They already have scrim leagues going on of Chinese, and these aren't amateur random amateur teams like QG. You have LGD, you have eStar, you have EDG. These RNG, all of these big name Chinese franchises are already building and playing Valorant teams in scrimmages. And so if anything, if the corporate, suits wanted to have the best launch possible, they would wait till China can play the game, because China, at the end of the day, is going to be the money maker of this game if it can pop off and if it can, pierce that crossfire monopoly that's been reigning over the country in terms of FPS forever. If they can pierce that crossfire market and actually get some of those players to move over to Valorant, that will fund Valorant for years to come, and the esports scene will pop off. My final point would just be that I do think it'll be something kind of in the middle, but I do agree that it needs to be a good launch. It needs to be a release. Harking back to Crucible, You only get one release. And when we talk about Crucible and like
Anthem
the
too.
daily, and Anthem,
Oh
and
God, Anthem.
and I do agree, and like Gigantic and all these other games that come out, and you get one launch day. You get one chance to kind of impress and kind of put your best foot forward. And if Riot comes out on June 2nd and flops, Valorant's going to be hurt by that. And I know they do have that built-in safety net of already 3 million players who are playing it constantly, but all it takes is one bad day, one bad release where the new game mode sucks, the new agent's broken, you can't even play because the servers are broken, to totally take away all the wind in its sails. I mean, the Twitch viewership was already going down. It's never going to be a Titan without the esports scene propping up, just because it's not the most entertaining solo queue game to watch. It's not a Fortnite or a Warzone where it's much more of a casual feel and you can play with 5 buddies and just chit chat and have fun.
And it's not a console game either.
It's not a console game either. Riot needs to stick the landing. So far, I think we can all agree, they've had an amazing beta. They've gone all these steps. They picked June 2nd. They need to stick the landing. If they stick the landing, sky's the limit. This game could be huge. It could take over in Chinese FPS scene. It could be a tier 1 esport by next year. But if they fail, and especially if the spectator mode is trash for the Twitch Rivals event on June 2nd, I will be upset. I will trash them next week if the spectator mode is trash, because you're gonna proclaim this $200,000 tournament that this is gonna be the first global championship of your game. If the spectator mode is trash and you still have Phoenix as the default icon when someone dies, which is ultimately very confusing, especially when each team has a Phoenix on the team, and the spectator mode's bugged, and you don't know if the loads are correctly, then I'm going to be here next week and I will be trashing Valorant.
In fact, you don't have to do it next week. You can do it on June 1st, because we're going to have a 12-hour stream talking all about it. So June 1st, we are going to have a 12-hour stream from noon Eastern to midnight Eastern right here, twitch.tv/ESPN Esports. This is going to be your most comprehensive way to get amped, to get jacked, to get psyched for the release of Valorant on June 2nd. 12 hours live content. All 4 of us, we will be here throughout the day. We're going to be talking with pro players, with owners, with developers. We're even going to have a live skin drawing. Yeah, that's right. That's going to happen. Check our Twitter right now, ESPN_esports. Momentarily, there will be a poll up there. You're going to help us determine what skin you would like drawn live on our Twitch channel during this 12-hour stream, the ESPN Esports Valorant launch special. That is June 1st, Monday. Again, noon Eastern to midnight Eastern. This show every Thursday, just as it always has been and just as it always will be, 8 p.m. Eastern. By the time we are here with you next week, however, Valorant will be in full launch and Tyler will be maulding, I'm sure, about the spectator mode, or he'll be very happy about it. That's for next week, though. For now, we got to run. Thank you very much, and we'll see you for our ESPN Esports Valorant special on June 1st.